it is time to tune up the band and prepare to be shocked, for it is another episode of the Sweet Chinwag podcast. I am Sam, alongside Reardon and Dan as we continue our journey through the wacky world of professional wrestling. Hello there, chaps. It is the Shockmaster. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Are you proud of yourself?
He's gonna shock the world.
Are you proud of yourself?
Look, there was only one opportunity I had to do this, and it was going to have to be this episode.
Now that is fair, unless we do a profile on Fred Ottman.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I mean,
I can't guarantee.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Now everyone who listens to us is going to want a Fred Ottman episode.
It's going to become like the thing that never happens.
Exactly. How have you been, gents? How's your week been?
Everything is moving at 100 miles per hour and I can't stop or I'll explode.
Okay, thank you for explaining the plot of Speed to me.
You're welcome.
Anyway, it's been a week. For many, many reasons, not least myself trying to keep up with the news in wrestling, and just generally anyway in life.
Mood? I think that's a soft mood on that one, isn't it?
I mean, as I'm sure many people who are listening to this throughout this time will have experienced, and as Sam will definitely have experienced, I had the joy, the joy of like the job tentacles and. Typing out job applications and stuff and all that. So
a joyous occasion every single time you do it.
Great. So much fun.
So much fun. Oh, God. Anyway, we give you this podcast thanks to those lovely people over at SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and always pending other platforms. And every Wednesday as well on Project Dits. By the way, I don't know if I've already said it before, but I'll say it again. Congratulations to the Dits family. Woo woo!
Yes.
Hey, congratulations.
Alrighty, so before we get on to our 1 year anniversary special, all about World Championship Wrestling, it is time to visit Dan for this week's wrestling news.
Hang on, it's the 1 year anniversary. 1 second. Dun 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 down.
Wrestling news.
The 1 year special.
Can I edit that? Have like little fancy 80s style bars going across the screen. It's
absolutely
amazing.
It looks so good. You did such a good job.
Thank you. So let's get into it. Let's start with Monday Night Raw. The fallout from WrestleMania Backlash. Let's just say WrestleMania Backlash was a pay-per-view that happened.
Yes. I much prefer. Is it telling that I much preferred New Legacy's WrestleMania Backlash to the actual WrestleMania Backlash?
Well, I think one thing that needs to be addressed of it is that, I mean, obviously I caught it the next morning. But there was a lot of good in the show.
Oh, absolutely.
There absolutely was a lot of good in the show. I will say probably Braun Strowman's best match.
Yeah, I'd go as far as to say that.
Or certainly his best multi-man match, which he's been in quite a lot of, I've realised. So that was pretty great. Obviously, Roman and Cesaro was fantastic.
Yeah.
Bianca was amazing as well.
Mm-hmm.
But going into Raw, we had the fallout from that. Starting off with AJ singles match, I believe, against Elias with Omos and Jackson Riker at ringside. AJ getting the win by DQ. Angel Garza beating Drew Gulak in basically a nothing match. Which is there's nothing more that we need to say about it, really.
True.
We had Kofi Kingston beating Randy Orton and Bobby Lashley in the same night, so super happy with that. Love to see that.
Surprised as all heck about that, but I am very happy to
Absolutely.
see it.
What looked to be the start of a small series between Ricochet and Sheamus, which started at WrestleMania Backlash when he answered the Open Challenge. I see Ricochet back in the jeans. I keep telling you, right? Lucha Underground is showing its influence now.
Yeah.
It's finally hit that cycle.
It's gonna become like it's gonna become like what like ROH 2002 was. Where it just slyly influences like everything that happens now.
I mean, to be quite honest, I really see Vince McMahon jumping into the serialized storytelling, just record everything angle. I can actually see him doing it.
Yeah.
How well that works, oh, that's a coin flip. But I could see him doing that.
We have Asuka winning over Charlotte. Obviously, again, we had the triple threat match for the Raw Women's title, which is a pretty good match. And then just finally, Damian Priest getting the win over John Morrison.
Oh, yes, because let's remember, The Miz is now dead. He is a zombie.
Technically, yes. The Miz is... technically, in old school kayfabe, The Miz is dead. What we do know is that The Miz picked up his kind of first major career injury.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tearing his ACL.
Oh, wow. It took him a while.
Dude, pretty much 17 years.
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's amazing.
He's running Chris Jericho numbers, frankly.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I was about to say. He was made of... I honestly thought he was made of rubber, the way he's able to bounce back off from stuff. But no, this one definitely seems like it's taken him out. I mean, that, of course, and now suffering from the necrosis and rigor mortis will do that to you.
Like, you know, there's only so much you can do when you get eaten by zombies.
Right, I'll say this right now. I give the guy props for the one who was pitching the idea. All right, we'll do a cross promotion with Army of the Dead. Instead of a lumberjack, like a regular lumberjack match, we'll make the lumberjacks and Jills zombies.
I mean,
see, like, the thing is, right, is I get why they were doing it for promotion, but also literally nothing in any of the build-ins pointed to this happening.
Exactly.
What they needed to do,
which is the problem.
What they needed to do is that someone needed to steal the Undertaker's urn and do it that way, and it summoned zombies.
And surely this would have been a perfect thing for Halloween Havoc.
That's what I mean. Like, why?
Yeah, I know.
Do it at Halloween Havoc. But again, that makes sense.
Yes, that's the problem.
Anyhow.
So moving on from that, though, I feel like we do need to address the big story in WWE, and we'll just address it before we get to NXT, because they both happen on the same day.
Yeah.
Or near enough on the same day. So we have our next full slate of, I'm going to say releases, but I will say for one of them, the situation is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So we have Alexander Wolf, who, as we know, the contract was up for renewal, but it wasn't renewed.
Which I'm upset about, because everyone knows Alexander Wolf's great.
And he isn't due to appear on NXT in the time that his contract is still active. So, as you said, he'll become a free agent on June 16th. And will still be, I believe, still have a 30-day no-compete clause.
Well, at least it's not 90-day.
But, I mean, obviously, Alexander Wolf, I would say, obviously well known in the European scene.
Yeah, one of the stalwart talents of the German scene. This one just sucks, mostly because it's like, when you know how bloody good he is, and he is good, he's an absolute asset to your company. And honestly, I thought he would have been great, being back in the role that got him all the success was as the leader of Imperium. I mean, like the mouthpiece, I should say, of Imperium.
Yeah.
The ringmaster, I dare you say.
And it is surprising to see.
Yeah.
Obviously, this might have been a mutual decision.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think it's really interesting to see, and I will say, looking towards NXT, I'm just saying it opens up a position.
Yes.
For a certain someone.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I'm not going to say who it is. We all know who that will be, but come on. Come on.
To go into some of the other releases, the other one which has a little bit of different context around it is Jessamine Duke.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since she was introduced as one of the four horsewomen of MMA into WWE, along with Shayna Baszler, Marina Shafir, and I can't remember who the fourth one was. Her name is escaping me.
I thought it was Kay Quick because I heard of something about Get Rowdy. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, Ronda. I don't know why my mind blanked on that.
I honestly thought you were joking, but see, that's how forgettable Ronda Rousey. I'm just kidding.
No, my brain's fried.
But this one,
yeah. So as far as we understand, or as far as I understand, it's that she's basically no longer going to be contracted as a wrestler, and she's just going to be doing up, down, down,
which is okay. I mean, she's been, I mean, if anyone's seen, she's done incredibly good in streaming. She like the little crew that they have with Dakota Kai, with Mansoor, Shane Thorne, and Dio Madden. They're enjoyable. They're really enjoyable streamers to watch. So it's glad to see that she'll still be in up, down, down. It just sucks because I think no one was ever going to expect a 4 horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen. That's just dream booking 101. But it's a shame to see it because there's a lot of talent there with Jessamine Duke. Same with Marina Shafir as well. Actually, all of the horsewomen of MMA actually were really talented. So it's a shame to see.
Yeah.
So in terms of the other ones, which are just pretty much flat out releases with no additional context, Brandy Lauren, who was due to debut, or she did debut as Skylar Story, but she only had one match. Vanessa Bourne, been there since 2016, only really, was due to be made main roster, but it just never seemed to quite happen. And Kavita Devi, who I thought was interesting because they were going to try and have her as part of the Superstar Spectacle.
Yes.
But she was injured at the time of it, so they couldn't. And given the investment they're putting into that particular territory and audience, I thought that they would probably use her as a pretty natural platform for that. I don't know if there's maybe further context around that, but I thought I would figure if you're making a big push to have Indian and Indian heritage talents come through to start selling into that market, someone like her, where she was the first Indian woman to wrestle in WWE at the Mae Young Classic, seems like a natural fit.
Yeah, you'd think, but well, WWE corporate moves in mysterious ways, as we all know.
Extremely mysterious ways.
Final one in this block is Jordan Clemens, well-known independent scene referee.
Yeah.
And he's already gotten a booking back with AIW.
Great to see and great to hear.
So they did a whole bunch of stuff saying he's come back home and all of that. Now we get to the final two. And these two kind of go together with each other, if you know the story.
Yeah.
Which is Ezra Judge and Drake Wirtz. Now, there's a lot to be said about Drake Wuertz.
I don't think we have a podcast long enough to go over Drake Wuertz. And I'll say this.
We don't have enough time in this segment to give a full in-depth dive on everything.
Yeah. What I will say is this. As a guy who watched CZW and saw him perform as Drake Younger to then go into NXT as a referee, it's disappointing to see his recent actions. Very disappointing to see.
As other people have said, and pretty much the stance I'll take on it, which is I've seen him go from a man who looked like he was getting his life onto track to then being on track to being the feature of a Dark Side of the Ring episode.
Oof. You know what? I can see that.
There's a whole bunch of stuff which most likely influenced him being released or fired, depending on whose reports you read.
Yeah.
As far as I understand it, part of it came down to the reason that Ezra Judge was released, in which he felt multiple times, and apparently other talent had been made to feel incredibly uncomfortable and unsafe working with Drake Wuertz.
Yeah.
To which a point came that Ezra Judge almost got physical with him.
Yeah.
And so it's at least been interpreted that Ezra Judge was released to avoid action from Drake Wuertz's side. Is at least the prevailing idea.
Yeah. That alone just makes it everything, this whole thing, really, really goddamn sucky. I can't think of any other words except it's horrible.
It is.
I haven't got anything really to say. It's just bad.
Yeah.
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 And then obviously, as came in last night, Velveteen Dream has also been released from the WWE. And again, no one knows the exact terms around why. But what I can say is that there's a record of multiple stories of people being unhappy working with him backstage.
It's been said that he was incredibly unprofessional.
Yeah, and there's another one which was that apparently he was posited to be given a role as a trainer, which majorly upset both NXT talent and upper management.
Oofed.
So I think maybe things that we had been told by, NXT and talent management may not have lined up with what the details actually were.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a lot of speculation on my part.
Absolutely. Yeah. All I'll say is this. Took them long enough.
Pretty much. But moving on now to NXT. We had a great show for Toni Storm debuting a new finisher.
Oh, what a throwback. I was like, is that Dean Allmark I'm seeing right there?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa!
Dean Allmark trained her.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. I never thought I'd see a Dean Allmark move on NXT television. It was really cool to see.
It was great. I absolutely loved it. And a great show for the two of them. Toni Storm and Zoe Stark. I mean, they're both amazing talents for NXT.
Yeah, it's a proof to me that, gosh, those two work so well together. But it's also proof that those two can work, really put on a match with anyone and make it really good. They
really can. And I mean, at least in my mind, I hope it goes to show for people watching NXT the value in looking beyond the company to see who might be next.
Absolutely.
Because again, a lot of people kind of decried her being indie and coming in and being given an important position. I'm like, no, she's really talented.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So talented.
Nice little moments, kind of like small promo segments, vignettes, if you will, for the way. And then the realization that Indy Hot will still loves Dexter Loomis.
It's the greatest long-term story booking of WWE this year, isn't it?
It honestly kind of might be. We had the continuation of the weird $1 Million Man Cameron Grimes feud.
You say weird. It is weird, but God, it's charming as all heck, and it's always great to see Ted DiBiase on television.
I love it because it's hilarious. It's great because it's just like Ted DiBiase just like comes out to the ring, laughs, and then that's enough to just annoy Cameron Grimes.
God, it's the Ron Simmons effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is.
And I will say, as part of this, love the win for Jake Atlas. Please take this guy up and up and up and up and up the ranks because he's so good.
Yeah, rivalry with Kushida. I'd see that.
Please.
I'd pay the network or the Peacock fee to see takeovers with Atlas and Kushida.
We then obviously had the segment with Alec, the tag match between Imperium and Maverick and Dane. And then at the end, we have the moment of Alexander Wolf being beaten up by Bartel and Eichner. And then basically setting out Alexander Wolf is no longer with Imperium.
Again, it's an upsetting thing to see because when that happened, I was like, they're going to release him, aren't they? And sure enough. I bet those guys were like, I don't really want to do this. I really don't want to do it, but he's out, so I guess that's what we got to do. So, I bet I'm hoping the silver lining to all this is that certain someone we all want to see hit in Imperium.
Yep. We had Saray getting a win over Aaliyah. We then had Hit Row versus it was Daivari and someone.
Tony Nese. I love Hit Row.
Hit Row is fantastic.
I really like Hit Row. So
I mean,
much.
it genuinely just feels like someone just took like the Def Jam games and then was just like, okay, but like in real wrestling now.
Yes, and we're not talking about that one promotion that tried to do that.
We're not talking about that.
All of them. It's rare to see a faction where every single member has charisma up the gills, but the Hit Row do, and then some.
And then we had the tag match between Thatcher and Ciampa versus Legado del Fantasma. Legado del Fantasma get the win. I could learn to speak properly. But no, there were tons of great moments in this.
Yeah.
Surprisingly complemented each other really well.
Yeah, that was the one thing that I was like, this match is... to take a quote from Joseph Montecillo, this match fucks.
Correct.
Damn. You must really like this damn match.
No, it's incredibly how well both of them work. Both teams work together on this one.
And look, right now we've got here and we've said the name. Like, am I gonna be big brain and am I gonna have predicted WWE's booking for Timothy Thatcher? Will I have big brain this?
You might have, possibly.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
We will see.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll see. We'll come next takeover. We'll see, Dad.
Yeah. And then just finally, we now have the new North American title holder, Bronson Reed, the thick boy himself.
Fantastic.
I am so here for this. I will say it's taken about 3 months.
Yep.
But we got there.
Slowly, and dear God, ever so surely, we got there. But no, absolute amazing main event. It's definitely up there with the top tier NXT main events for sure. I mean, Gargano back on form. He was never off form. It's just he needed something, I think, to really sink his teeth into. And this match, I think, really showed that, yes, once you give him something, Gargano will take it and run with it. This match,
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh gosh, that ending spot with the big dive off, that was an amazing spot. So good.
I think my favorite one was just Bronson Reed like up the cage, just fighting off 2 people at once.
Yeah.
It was so good. But no, super happy for Bronson Reed to be NA champion. I think he'll be great for it.
Yeah.
And really, it's just a question. Again, it's a question of where do people fit into this NA title picture, because it is stacked.
Crumbs, it is, and then some.
And so one of the things that I was going to say coming off the back of this, just before we go over to NXT UK, 205 Live has been slapping differently.
Yeah.
And let me just say, right, when they bring in Ikemen Jiro, Asha Hale, Ari Sterling into NXT's fold, like the cruiserweight division is gonna be a genuine contender.
I'd agree with you on that one. I mean, with those guys coming in and with Kushida as champion, I dare say it definitely has the potential to be just as good as SmackDown's cruiserweight division back in the day.
I'm saying, right, Kushida versus Ikemen Jiro.
Yes, injects it to my veins.
That's gonna slap hard. And I'm really happy people are seeing like Asha Hale, who was previously involved, we mentioned this before, get a platform, because again, great talent. Formerly Ari Sterling, formerly Alex Zane on the independent circuit, again, great talent.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be excited for. I won't talk too much about NXT UK just because quite a lot of it is around people I don't really like.
Yeah.
So what I will say is, personally, I think taking the Heritage Cup off A-Kid was not the right decision.
No, at this point, no.
And I will say that the person who won it doesn't need it.
I agree with that, because he is a former UK champion, so, like...
He's already legitimized. He's already legitimized. And I will say the one, really for me, the one to watch out for in this one is Amal. She was a French talent signed up by NXT UK. And I really do hope that they do take the onus on putting her in an important position. I think she'd have great matches with someone like Ginny. And of course, looking at the NXT UK women's title picture, you've got a pretty strong field.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you've got a strong field. I feel like the recurring problem, though, is that they never really make it seem like anyone can be champion.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird one where it's like they have lots of they have quite a few contenders, but it's like the contenders never seem like they can actually win.
I dare say I feel like that's a remnant of Progress's booking of the women's division.
Probably.
Because it feels very similar.
If you want my belief, I mean, I think for me, if I am them, I'd just set up for Millie McKenzie.
Same.
That's pretty much like, I'll just be like, okay, well, what can we do to get her in the title picture organically, get her in, have her win it?
Yeah, because I don't think they realise just how much of a special once in a lifetime talent they have with Millie McKenzie.
if they aren't showing it, I hope they do know.
Yeah, I really hope they do as well.
Moving over to SmackDown, we had the multi-women tag match, and we now have it announced for the next edition of Raw. There'll be another women's tag title match between Natalya and Tamina and Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax.
It's the repeat again. Not much else to say.
Pretty much. It's the same match we've seen before, but this time it had Bayley and Bianca in it. Yay.
Hey.
But let's get into the hot stuff, right? First off, Shinsuke being joined to the ring by the former Eric Bugenhagen of Evolve at Notoriety, playing the guitar for him coming out.
Wasn't
Love
Eric
that.
wasn't Eric Bugenhagen the former Joe of Old Spice?
Yes.
Yes, I thought so. But Rick Boogs, isn't he now known as?
He's now Rick Boogs.
Rick Boogs.
And Shreds. He plays the guitar. He actually played Shinsuke's theme quite well, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. At the end of the match, he kind of botched a bit, but, it happens.
It happens. It's live. You're a little bit nervous. I can understand.
Shinsuke, King of the Ring. Let's get it. Let's go. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
There was the IC title match, which was then marked by Aleister Black returning. Let's go.
The creepy storyteller finally making his debut. Did he ever? I wonder if he's seen the intro to Resident Evil Village, because I feel like that's gimmick infringement there.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you reckon someone at WWE Creative just played Far Cry 5?
That as well, yeah. Oh god, he does look like Jacob C, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh god, he does.
I was just like, did they just play that? And they're like, that looks pretty fucking great. That looks similar.
Oh no, he's gonna be a cult leader now, isn't he?
Hey, look, right. It is what it is.
Now all they need is just to sign Conor McGregor and he could be one of his disciples.
Oh god.
Good lord, no, please.
Should we move swiftly along before I have that cursed image in everyone's head?
We will quickly move along over to AEW now, quickly. What I will say is, shout out Eddie Kingston for stealing the Young Bucks trainers.
God.
It's so aggressively New York.
It's amazing.
Really
it's so yonkers. It's so yonkers. I love it. No, God. He ever since he showed up last year, he has been on nothing but top form the entire time.
Absolutely.
He's still up there as of right now in terms of top 10s of 2020 and top wrestlers. Yeah, he's still in the top 3 at the moment for me.
No, I can totally believe that. One key part to add on top of this as well is that we now have AEW Rampage, which will be debuting on TNT, and AEW Dynamite will be moving over to TBS. As far as I understand, this is an upgrade to a degree.
Yeah, from what I've heard, I'm not too familiar. Funnily enough, I'm not too familiar with the cable landscape of American television. But I have heard, because of course TBS is the more established one. That was the one that Turner kind of started with, and then of course his empire fell into place with that. It's quite a big deal in terms of lineage and history to have them on TBS, but not like a big seismic change from what I've heard. Am I right in that?
Someone said to me like TBS gets like maybe 1 million more viewers a year than TNT. But like the big thing for this is that they won't have to compete against the NBA and NHL.
Only just with the Atlanta Hawks, if they existed.
Yeah. That was a deep cut. I'm impressed, honestly.
Well, thank you, Ian. My research has come in handy this week.
But just going over some of the other matches in there, Christian Cage versus Matt Sydal, which I was super happy to see. Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker, which is coming up, which I'm super excited for.
Yeah.
And then Red Velvet versus Serena Deeb for the NWA Women's title. Great match.
That was so good.
Serena Deeb is like a real old style ring commander.
Yeah, I'll say she at the moment is carrying the NWA on her shoulders at the moment.
Oh, she is.
She really single-handedly.
Let me just say about the NWA.
Oh yeah.
Don't watch it. It is not worth your time.
I'm so it angers me to a point of how fast and swift this fall from grace for the NWA has been.
Thing is, like in 2019, the NWA was building up huge.
Exactly.
And now it's just painful. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff surrounding Nick Aldis as well, in amongst all this. I mean, the one for me is that they had the choice of Matt Cross and Tyrus, and they picked Tyrus.
Which blows my goddamn mind.
Okay. But no, so as we mentioned last week, we're going to try and get to it, but let me just say this, right? Anthony Ogogo is far exceeding my expectations.
Yes.
2, I know they're doing this whole, like, babyface heel booking thing, right? But they just gave him a promo where they were like, okay, basically what we want you to do is just spit facts, and you have literally, there's like nothing to counter you. They were like, literally just like, go out there, spit some facts, and then that will make people not like you. Meanwhile, in the UK, everyone loves him anyway.
Yes. And you thought he was just a spokesperson for Subway. No, he's more than that.
And basically, the situation is that we're getting this, like, pseudo Brett run.
Yes.
Where everywhere but the US, Ogogo is the face. But in America, he's the heel.
And I'll take that because that's the way it should be.
And I love it. It's amazing.
It's so good. No, like, honest to goodness, I'm so happy for Anthony Ogogo that he is doing tremendously well and has picked up to it like a fish in water. Of course, because if everyone knows, the reason why he had to retire from boxing is really heartbreaking. But no, the fact that he's been able to find his niche in professional wrestling, so freaking awesome to see. Could not be any more happy for him, and I really do hope he has success. A TNT title run in the near future or in the distant future, I can see it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Following on from that, just quickly go over to New Japan. Just a quick match shout out. New Japan Strong, Fred Rosser versus Hikuleo.
That was, yeah.
A really surprisingly good match.
That was great.
And then just lastly, as we go through the other bits, Moose has denied reports about him re-signing with Impact, so we don't know what the situation around that exactly is.
Yeah, it's been really up in the air because reports say he hasn't, reports say he did, and then he's come out and said that he hasn't re-signed, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Violent by Design win the Impact tag titles after using Rhino's Call Your Shot. And then Effie has announced his latest show, which is called Fear the Gay Agenda.
Which is absolutely tremendous.
And with that, we're done with the news.
Alrighty, so recommendation corner again, once more, is the Dark Side of the Ring episode, all on Collision in Korea. Really compelling watch. Loved every one of the talking heads that were in this one, especially to Inoki and to Too Cold Scorpio, who is just an absolute legend. I knew, as I said with last week's episode, I knew of Collision in Korea. I didn't know some more of the finer details, like Scott Norton's time there was absolutely horrendous. And just the amount of people that were also there, the reason as to why they were forced to attend the match, and the reasoning behind it and why Inoki had done it. Of course, as everyone knows, Inoki was in Japanese politics at the time and was using it in his party as the Sport and Peace Party, where they were doing sporting and wrestling events as kind of like a peace offering to other countries. He had put on a couple of Peace Festival shows before this, but this was the biggest one. Like, go to Pyongyang, North Korea, extend that olive branch, but we'll do it in front of 130,000 people. No, absolutely compelling watch. I highly, again, as with most of Dark Side of the Ring, massively recommended. Other than that, also, I would like to say, massive shout outs to, especially for the episodes that we've got coming up, a special shout out to the Death of WCW book, the Nitro book by Guy Evans, which is an amazing read, to Wrestling Bios, who at the moment is doing a retrospective of the Monday Night Wars for each and every episode, and of course to our friends Monday Night Chores, who are going through as well the entire Monday Night Wars and finding out who did it better. Reardon, do you have any recommendations for me, buddy?
I do, as a matter of fact. In honor of this being our 1 year anniversary, I recommend this podcast.
Yay!
Woo-hoo!
Come on, guys. 1 year? That is ridiculous. Shouldn't have happened, but it did.
I don't know how, but somehow we got to this point. And we'll, as I said, when we're done with this, we will have an extra special podcast just for the occasion. But yeah, it's crazy. And thank you, chaps. I really do appreciate that we're here for a year in and I get to talk about wrestling every week with you. It means a lot, so thank you for that. Alrighty.
Thank you.
Without further delay, it is time for the history of WCW, Part 1. Humble Beginnings. Now, gentlemen, first question I want to know is, how much do you know about prior history of WCW?
This is actually something where I know a little bit about.
Hey, you can correct me this time there.
Yeah, I know, right? Normally I'm the guy that knows jack shit about everything, but I actually read a great little ebook, The Death of WCW.
Hey.
So I actually know a little bit about the tale of all of this madness.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I know a little bit. So, like, I know there's a little bit of like the NWA period. A tiny bit about like Jim Crockett and that.
Yeah.
But I really don't know a whole lot kind of pre-1990, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is going to be an exciting one. So, as I say, I want to preface this again by saying my apologies if I skim over big parts and big chunks of storylines and history within WCW. I wanted to make sure this was packed and concise as I could possibly make it, whilst we have the opportunity to go on tangents as well, because we know you guys know how much we love tangents on this podcast. All right, so. Chapter 1, Jim Crockett Promotions and Georgia Championship Wrestling. Now, Jim Crockett Promotions can trace its origins all the way back to 1931, believe it or not. With Jim Crockett Sr., he was a promoter of live events that included music, theatre, minor league baseball, ice hockey, and most importantly for our story, professional wrestling. Now, they built their home base of pro wrestling within the Carolinas and Virginia, touring those states under, a whole hodgepodge of names. So, these names included Championship Wrestling, All-Star Wrestling, East Coast Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic Championship Sports, and Worldwide Wrestling. I'm sure that there was several others of those within those names that they probably went under as well. So, with that, Georgia Championship Wrestling was, of course, run, guess where? In Georgia.
I never would have guessed.
Founded in 1944 by Paul Jones as ABC Booking. Jones would then be replaced by owner Jim Barnett, and eventually in 1983 by the famous trio of Jack and Jerry Briscoe and Ole Anderson. 1972 would see the first big change for Georgia Championship Wrestling, going from the ABC-affiliated WQXI-TV to the independent cable channel WTCG, then owned by one Ted Turner. Now, this made...
American like, TV and radio codings are, like, painful to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. It took me quite a while to say WQXI and get it right, because that is a weird bunch of letters to put together for a TV station.
Yeah.
Where did the Q in X fit in with Georgia? I'd like to know where that fits in with Georgia. Okay, no, fun fact about this move. This made Georgia Championship Wrestling the first NWA affiliated, I'll get it out eventually, promotion to be broadcast on a nationwide scale. So, a little history, a little quick history on Ted Turner and what would then become WTBS. Ted Turner, the son of a billionaire who went into television and media ventures under sort of unfortunate circumstances. His dad, unfortunately, took his own life, and with no one really to kind of inherit it except Ted, he kind of took up the reins pretty much straight after, going from radio broadcasting to television. He's had his eyes fully on national expansion. With WTCG, that was his big experiment to try new technology, this brand new technology, I should say, called cable television. Being able to put his independent television channel, to be an independent television channel, whilst broadcasting to not only Georgia, but the entire United States. This would see a name change where WTCG would become WTCG Superstation. There's a lot of acronyms. I apologize if my tongue is not working on this.
This is the thing with American broadcasting codes. They're all four letters, and they're all just a bunch of letters like smashed together with each other, depending on the state and where it sits.
God, you're telling me. All right, 1978 saw Turner strike a deal with MIT to obtain the rights to the WTBS call sign. Basically, he gets the rights to that name. This allowed Turner to strengthen his Superstation branding and use the initials TBS. Now, TCG was known as Turner Communications Group. TCG became the Turner Broadcasting System, and WTCG became WTBS Superstation, or as we all know, of course, TBS. Turner's eyes for content at this time for TBS were reruns of classic shows and cartoons, live broadcasts and the exclusive rights to Atlanta Braves and Atlanta Hawks games, and of course, one of his personal favourites, professional wrestling. So, with all this, give you a quick history on Ted Turner, let's see what Vince McMahon's doing at this time. So, 1982 saw Vince McMahon purchase his father's Capital Wrestling Corporation, along with every shareholder's stake, and merged it into his own company, Titan Sports. Now, that's a really telling point. He didn't inherit his father's company. He bought his father's company.
It's kind of crazy.
I don't know what it is, but there's something about that, and then also just knowing the fact that even in in 1980, it was just Titan Sports, and I'm just like, it seems weird to me to know that. Yeah,
it's really weird. Seeing that details, because I thought it was mid-80s, or mid to late 80s that he made the Titan Sports incorporated name, but no, pretty much when he bought out his father's company, that was his company that he made.
Yeah, I also believe at this time, if I'm thinking correctly, oh wait, no, I'm actually wrong. Wow. I looked it up. I just looked it up. It's I was going to say that TCM, Turner Classic Movies, come out, but that's actually 1994.
Yeah, that would probably been along with the kind of his nation with Turner's expansion. We'll get into that with more of TNT and TCM. But at the time, I believe all he had was TBS and CNN.
Well,
but yeah, so That's really telling, isn't it? That with Vince, you saw his mindset was pretty much there that he wouldn't inherit. He's going to purchase his father's company, but there was a caveat to this when he bought the shareholders' stake. If he did not make a profit within a year, he was to forfeit his shares back to every shareholder. Wow. Really weird tangent. There's a really weird caveat to that, but again. I guess that was the only thing he could probably say yes to if in order to get everyone's share of that company.
Yeah.
In a weird way, though, it knowing that makes it seem like a very Vince demand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He included that caveat.
Indeed. All right. The WWF and its mission for national expansion began pretty much straight after the acquisition. He's buying up territories in their TV slots. This allowed McMahon to cross into new parts of the country and gain new eyes, much to the ire of the old school mindset and, of course, to the NWA at the time, which was the rule, pretty much the unwritten rule was you keep out of other people's territories. We can swap talent here and there, but the rule is you don't tread into our territory.
Did we ever say that wrestling was and still is an incredibly insular business?
Just
ever so slightly. So in response to this, Georgia Championship Wrestling and Ted Turner rebranded their television show on Saturdays to World Championship Wrestling. At this time, Georgia Championship Wrestling was steadily gaining viewership in the neutral states of Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and thus were able to keep on steady footing with Vince's plan. So when it came to the two big companies, they were still kind of on level with what Vince was doing with the WWF. Now, both of these companies were now looking for national rather than regional expansion, and this is kind of where the very start, I guess you could say, of the golden age of wrestling was going to kick off, and I guess was starting to lay the seeds of what we now know as the Monday Night Wars. Now, GCW, believe it or not, for a little while were the top dog because, of course, of their lineage, their history, a very loyal fan base, as well as having all of the backing of the NWA at the time.
Yeah. Can I just say how weird as hell it is that wrestling has a good terms of the neutral states? This is general, I kind of forget because it's so far removed from my history with wrestling about the territory, the territory era. And it's such a weird. Look, that's actually something I was thinking about. Do we consider the UK as still working off a territory kind of?
Not really.
It's a weird kind of thing.
Mostly
because the thing. I mean, I guess the thing. Because the UK had joint promotions, which was basically a whole group of people working together. I mean, it was described as being in a cartel, basically, but it was a whole group of people working together across the country to promote wrestling to be shown on TV.
Yeah, I believe All Star Promotions, wasn't it? At that time, would have been the people behind that. And which I believe they're still going to this very day, believe it or not.
They might be. No, I wouldn't say that the UK really had a territory system.
I guess you could say in the modern day it has a very, I guess, on face value territory system with England, and Scotland kind of being the two territories, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But even then, that's loose as all heck.
Because the thing is that half the time in British wrestling, and other people wrestlers will notice that people just go between companies and just do shows at different places just because they want to.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
It's a strange one, but I guess it's a product of America and how big and expansive that country and its television viewership is. Okay, so So GC, as I said, GCW, oh sorry, Georgia Championship Wrestling, were the top dog for a little while. And whilst Vince was doing all of this kind of, well, you shouldn't be going into other people's territories and running shows there, he did this much to the anger of the NWA. So spurred on by that, Vince said, you know what? Screw you, I'm severing ties with the NWA. He did this during an NWA Board of Directors meeting. And when he made the plans of going into other territories, there was a big shouting contest, and the president of the time, I believe it was Jim Crockett Jr., was trying to calm everyone down, saying that everyone was saying that Vince can't do this, he's treading on our territories, he's taking our money away. Vince calmly got up, left the building, and then just sent a letter saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm not in the NWA anymore." The
Jesus.
balls on the man to just be like, to start an argument, leave that argument without talking, and then send a letter saying, "I'm breaking up with you."
He is the true ultimate wrestling fuckboy.
Also, there is another very famous or infamous story of an altercation between Ole Anderson and Vince and Linda McMahon. When Vince was, we'll get into it, into his eventual lead into the Georgia territory, but whilst Vince was doing all of this and buying up the territories, Ole Anderson and Vince and Linda were in, I think it was a convention where they both met up and were face to face. Vince says a hello to Ole, to which Ole responds with, "Fuck you, Vince, and fuck you, Linda."
I thought we might say Vinda.
Vinda.
With all our powers combined into Vinda.
I mean, look, that's that. If that isn't the most Ole Anderson thing possible.
To which Vince, quite offended, and standing up, I guess, for his wife, I think said something along the lines of, I think you might choke on those words. Something in the vein of that. Anyway.
Something tells me Ole Anderson did not care.
Oh no, of course he didn't. It's Ole Anderson, of course it was. Okay, so in response to Vince severing ties with the NWA, Jim Crockett Jr. would go on to create Starrcade on closed circuit television. This would not only propel the NWA back on top, but made a household name of one Ric Flair. Vince, then, would respond by pushing arguably one of the most well-known wrestlers of all time. One Hulk Hogan, riding off of the success of his role as Thunderlips in Rocky III. Believe it or not, again, another fun fact, Hulk Hogan wasn't even with the WWF when he was in Rocky III. He was actually with the AWA.
I still refuse to believe that, even though I know it's true.
It's crazy, and it's because of that film that Vince pushed the hell out of him. It's crazy. Okay, all of this leads to Black Saturday. The 9th of April, 1984. Jack and Jerry Briscoe, feeling quite unhappy with how GCW is getting on, the decisions of Ole Anderson and Jim Barnett leaving the company after that to then kind of work in cahoots, believe it or not, with Vince McMahon at the time for his plans of national expansion with the WWF. Jack and Jerry sold their shares of Georgia Championship Wrestling, including the TBS time slot, to Vince McMahon. Now, the story of this is that Vince McMahon approached Ted Turner first to ask him to buy out the TBS time slot away from Georgia Championship Wrestling to use it as WWF programming. When Ted said no, Vince thought, you know what, I'll go out of my way to go through the back door to make sure I get that time slot. And so he was looking for a way to buy a controlling stake of Georgia Championship Wrestling. Funnily enough, as fate would allow it, Jack and Jerry were really upset with how it was going, had a call with Vince. It was a kind of a courtesy call, but quickly thereon, Vince said, all right, I'm getting down to business. Can I have Georgia Championship Wrestling, please? Turns out, yeah, that Jack and Jerry were pretty happy with that, and it was like, yep, go on. Oh, by the way, our shares also include the TV slot as well.
Can I have your company as a treat?
Just there, like, hi, yes, give company, please, thank you.
Of course.
To be in that position, I'm sorry, to be in that kind of position where you can just do that will never cease to terrify me, quite frankly.
And this all before Vince has really solidified his place as an absolute power force in professional wrestling.
That's right.
So the man already had delusions of grandeur way before he was a billionaire.
I think that's something to keep in mind for our listeners who don't know like the ins and outs of professional wrestling and only heard Vince McMahon via us talking about him. This is at the time where Vince McMahon is not Vince McMahon, but he's very slowly becoming that guy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, point of that is, when he tried to buy Ole Anderson's share, of course, Ole said, no, you can go away. I'm keeping my share. As a matter of fact, he was trying to have the buyout of Jack and Jerry's shares reneged in court because he was trying to say that it was unfair. He never approached the rest of the shareholders about this decision. But no, they couldn't confirm whether he did or not, and the deal went through.
Underhand corporate dealings. Come on, this is America. They should be used to this by now.
Absolutely. So, as we all know, and as it's been known throughout history, Southern wrestling fans are known to be fans of less gimmicky tropes in the industry and rather the sporting spectacle of professional wrestling. It's more of a technical, sporting Southern wrestling rather than the gimmicky, over-the-top comic book style of what Vince was putting on in New York. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
So, on the 14th of July 1984, the deal had been done. World Championship Wrestling started with introducing Vince McMahon on screen, and he proudly proclaimed that he was going to be showing clips of his far superior World Wrestling Federation product. Can you guess the amount of anger from viewers when this was broadcast?
The funny thing to me looking at this is I'm like, man, why do they have to call it Black Saturday? It's just the TV slot changed. It's something different we're showing. But then I'm like, well, clearly there's a deep resentment to what was being produced, to what was being expected.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. So it's fair to say most viewers of TBS were angry. Complaints were sent in their thousands to TBS demanding that the wrestling return. Another fact was Vince was promised to show original studio wrestling content when he bought the time slot and was, in discussions with Turner as to what he wants on World Championship Wrestling. Vince, in all of his infinite wisdom, decides to say, yeah, fuck that, and show his own pre-recorded content from WWF tapings.
Again. You can't say there isn't a pattern here.
Really is.
Yep.
Of course, this really infuriated Ted Turner and was actually quite a big factor into why he refused to kind of show WWF content on his product. At this time, Ole Anderson, who never sold his share to Vince, teamed up with the other shareholders who didn't budge to form Championship Wrestling from Georgia. The similarly named, may I add, but still technically different, or legally different, may I add.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a legally different entity, but...
So rather than... Turner could not get rid of the WCW show. It was a ratings draw. Vince had the rights to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and he could do whatever he wanted with it, now that he had the TV slot with TBS. But what Turner could do, seeing as he, owns this whole empire, decides, oh, you know what? If I can't get rid of it, I'll just drown him out with even more wrestling. So he quickly secures the rights to Championship Wrestling from Georgia, and as well as Bill Watts' Mid-South Wrestling as a way of shutting Vince out. Of course, this pisses Vince off because he wants to be the only wrestling game on TBS.
Yeah.
With this, the ratings, like, dived. Like, they nosedived as soon as Black Saturday happened, and they continued to dive down. And when, of course, Turner bought the rights to the Championship Wrestling from Georgia and Mid-South Wrestling, those, of course, went straight up, when World Championship Wrestling went straight down. So
am I not surprised?
So believe it or not, Vince had this time slot for quite a long time. When you hear the story, you'd think it was that one episode and then he quickly scarpered from TBS. But no, he held this on from July 1984 to March 1985, with Vince selling the WCW program and the TBS time slot back to Turner via Jim Crockett Promotions. Now, the reason Vince did this was because he really didn't want to get rid of the time slot, but as WrestleMania was coming up and was being a huge financial gamble, he needed to find money somewhere. And seeing as the product was not doing well in Georgia and people wanted wrestling more than rather than his gimmicky comic book sensibilities of wrestling, he sold it to Jim Crockett for $1 million. To which he said when he signed it, yeah, you're going to regret this.
I mean, again, I feel like there's a thread going through all of this.
So, this really didn't affect Vince in the long run, of course, is because the WWF, Hogan, and WrestleMania, they were riding a massive wave of momentum at the time. So it really didn't do much to affect their forward momentum. And because, of course, 85 was like the year for the WWF. And from then, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger for them. But we all know that, of course. So, this new incarnation of what would be the new WCW under Jim Crockett Promotions and Championship Wrestling from Georgia became the top show on TBS, because of course it did.
Yeah.
As soon as Vince goes, boom, it goes straight back.
In the words of Excalibur, we're giving the people what they want.
Exactly. So if both WWF and JCP would promote pay-per-view events to kind of try and one-up each other at this time, to varying degrees of success, and that would go all the way to 1989. Both of them riding a high wave of momentum. Both had their massive superstars at the time. Of course, we had Hogan. They had Flair. And again, it seemed like that there were two massive entities in town. But at this time, JCP and Georgia Championship Wrestling were still under the NWA umbrella. I'll get back to the NWA in a moment. Okay, next chapter. Turner's acquisition of Jim Crockett Promotions and his renaming of the company. Turner knew that World Championship Wrestling was an absolute ratings draw for him. Combine that with the inexpensive cost of producing the studio shows, which was kind of the reason why you had so many territories and so many television stations running wrestling. It was just cheap to produce.
Yeah.
And being that this was one of the biggest shows on Turner's network, he outright purchases Jim Crockett Promotions on the 11th of October 1988 and incorporated it as the Universal Wrestling Corporation. The deal was completed on the 2nd of November, and the promotion was renamed to World Championship Wrestling, or WCW, because guess what? Ted Turner never forgets what you done, Vince.
C-dub.
Never forget. This is a war of just pure spite.
Like, I can't lie, sometimes the beef between billionaires just hits different.
Really?
It's the... it's funny seeing these guys, because it's like Ted Turner...
They have genuinely all the money in the world and are like some of the most important people in their sectors, and then they're literally just going around like, oh, I can't believe this other guy who's important in this other sector that's vaguely related to me is pissing me off.
Yes, let's destroy him.
Yeah.
I feel like like, because Ted Turner has a reputation. I emphasize reputation because, you know, billionaires be billionairing, but he has a reputation of being quite a weird Willy Wonka kind of guy when it comes to his money.
Yes.
He does he generally, if you actually look at his history of what he's done and all the companies he's made and all that kind of stuff, he has that energy of if someone handed me $1 billion and it's like, what do you want to do? And he's like, anything the fuck I want, frankly.
It's just the thing of it. It's just like, man, I really like wrestling. Oh, I know a TV station now. Guess I'll buy a wrestling company.
Yep. I mean, look.
I can show wrestling as well on my network.
It's just, think about like the companies he that are under his umbrella, from like CNN to TNT to the Cartoon Network. It's just like that screams a man who just wants to throw money at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, with all that done, the previous history of what we know and what became known, I should say, as WCW, shall we get into the beginnings of World Championship Wrestling? Because it is an intriguing couple of years that they started out. Now, this chapter, 1989, WCW's Rocky Start and Jim Herd. 1989 was quite the turnaround of fortunes for WCW, with Ric Flair positioned as world champion, and he was actually head booker at this time. Flair was the mind behind the big rivalries between him and Ricky Steamboat. They had some tremendous matches at this time for the world title.
They did.
And with Terry Funk as well.
Yep. That's a completely different thing, but still, every time I hear Terry Funk's name, I have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God, what have I done to you, Dad? No, of course, the former rivalry with Steamboat, pay-per-views were a massive success when these guys were top billing in the main event, fighting for the World Championship. Flair was also the mastermind and saw the arrival and booking of young talents such as Brian Pillman, the Great Muta, Scott Steiner, the Road Warriors, and arguably his greatest rival, Sting. Now we'll get back to we're going to get back to their historic rivalry a little later, because whilst all of this is really good and really positive, it ended rather abruptly for Flair. In 1990 saw Flair leave the company in very quick fashion. Now, the news and reports suggest that WCW talent wasn't all that infused with Flair's booking, because he kind of just booked himself at the top to be world champion.
Man, I wonder what happens when you give your world champion the power to be the booker as well.
Exactly. As well as another story of his refusal to drop the WCW title to Lex Luger after he had promised to drop it to Sting, who was out injured at the time. But most would agree that dropping the title to Sting was a better decision, as he was considered a far better worker than Luger.
To the surprise of absolutely no one.
Who would replace Flair? Of course, Ole Anderson would replace him as head booker. I
feel like we're just going round in circles at this point.
Oh boy, it only gets worse from here. Anderson would, at this time, try to compete with the WWF with outlandish and over-the-top storylines too.
Oh no!
Varying degrees of success. So,
is Ole Anderson the reason we had RoboCop?
Yep.
Good lord.
He was also the reason for the Black Scorpion. He was also the reason for the Chamber of Horrors, and a whole multitude of weird booking decisions. Anderson would also constantly push older talent above the younger ones, especially to those who were really loyal to him in his Georgia days.
Man, you ever feel like a problem just starts repeating itself?
Oh, I don't know how.
We'll get to that in part 2.
Oh gosh, yes. So 91 building on this momentum, they had some success. They're drawing people in. They're selling out arenas. WCW were becoming more and more autonomous, and eventually would see them split from the NWA to become solely World Championship Wrestling. 91 also saw Jim Herd, former head of St. Louis station at KPLR-TV and regional manager of Pizza Hut, as the president of WCW.
You ever stop and think that maybe CEOs are bullshit?
Really?
See, like here's the thing. Here's the thing, right?
Pizza Hut, man.
If they were doing it in the sense of like, okay, you're gonna like lead the business side of this, I'd be like, fine. But they sold this as like him being like the head person in charge of WCW, and he owns Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
All I'll say is this: the only person to jump from Pizza Hut to another company and be successful is Reggie Fils-Aimé. To go from Pizza Hut to Nintendo. He did it better, and he's the only one who's done it properly. Alrighty, I'm preparing myself for this one because you'll love to hear all of this. But it's well known what Herd was like. So, the inexperience of Jim Herd, along with Anderson, showed with some really silly booking and creative decisions at the time. Now, 91 also saw Flair return to the company after being begged by Ole Anderson to portray the Black Scorpion character. But this was the start of Herd and Flair butting heads.
Yep.
So some of the ideas Jim Herd had in mind, and that he bounced off of people, were a tag team called the Ding Dongs, whose sole gimmick was they loved bells. Big Josh,
Perfect.
a lumberjack who came to the ring with dancing bears.
I see no issue.
And the Desperados, a stable of bumbling comedic cowboys. Now, obviously, these were met with utter confusion and disdain from the talent backstage.
I don't know. That Bells one. If you could call up Richard Branson and get Tubular Bells playing, you could work this out.
Or get Jimmy Hart to make a bastardized non-legal version of Tubular Bells.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Because the thing is, I'm laughing at it, and I'm like, but to be fair though, Bailey's catchphrase right now is "Ding Dong Hello."
There you go. Her
Right.
next tag team is the Ding Dong.
I mean, hell, just Bailey, frankly.
Yeah. So one story from all of this is that Stan Hansen was so upset with being asked to join the Desperados, he quit on the spot.
That sounds exactly like what Stan Hansen would do.
I would say he was lucky that Jim Herd didn't get his head lariated off his shoulders.
Yeah, I was gonna say, oh yeah, if you go to Stan Hansen and be like, hey, by the way, I want to make you make yourself look like an idiot cowboy when his gimmick is cowboy who will take your head off with his arm. I don't think that's gonna work well.
No, it was never going to work out well. How did they think that was going to work out? But, oh lordy, the biggest and most infamous story is yet to come. And of course, it's all about Ric Flair, Roman Gladiator.
Oh,
Again,
goodness.
every time I hear this story, I assume it's fake.
It sounds so
Because
stupid.
it sounds so stupid and makes no sense and sounds like a fever dream.
Okay,
To
so
be honest, it's the kind of non-making sense that has to be true.
it really does. So the backstory from what has been told is that Jim Herd and Ole Anderson wanted Flair absolutely away from the main event. They never wanted him to be champion. They don't want him in the main event. They want to keep him as far down the card as humanly possible. So, as a way to overhaul his Nature Boy gimmick, they wanted him to shave his head, wear a diamond earring, walked to the ring in a Centurion's outfit and called himself Spartacus.
Little on the nose with that one.
Little on the nose.
Now, I once made a video for What Culture talking about this, and I made the point when Adam Blompier said Spartacus to bring up a picture of Kurt Douglas and saying, "No, I am Spartacus."
Yep, as you should.
As one should. This. So yeah, Flair was pissed. I don't know how you can garner it from that, but no, Flair was really pissed at this.
I think the thing for me that really gets it for me, I can't remember who said it, but it was like someone said it was like, we need to get with the times, and I'm like, that's definitely not getting with the times though.
It really isn't. Could you imagine Reardon, Ric Flair, Roman Centurion?
You know, it's
okay,
weird
right.
because I actually can, but you know what would be even better?
Oh, God.
And I think would have been more appropriate. Not Ric Flair, the Roman Centurion. Ric Flair, the Roman Emperor.
You just want to see Ric Flair in a toga, don't you?
Listen. All I want is for Ric Flair to perform the entirety of I, Claudius. That I think could work out.
Oh, that is a mental image that I cannot unsee, and I want to see that.
Like, can you imagine him? Imagine him being like Augustus, going, "Has anyone in WCW not slept with my daughter? Woo!"
Sure, baby, where are you?
That's incredibly cursed. Also, just after looking up now, fun fact: the movie Spartacus was released in 1960.
Yes, it was.
Getting with the times.
My God.
And we're in 1991 by this point.
Yep.
30 years old. 30 years old at this time.
This all hit a breaking point when Hurd tried to negotiate a pay cut to Flair's contract. This led to Flair being let go and, of course, joining the WWF, taking the newly made WCW title with him, as Flair made the down payment on that title with his own money and therefore had ownership of the WCW championship.
You know, it's almost like that's something that you should, consider when you're going through this point and you're in the middle of a contract discussion with someone.
Yeah, no, that, he can take that WCW title with him and show it to his competition when he debuts there. Oh, shit, no, he actually did. No, it's if anyone's seen that episode, I believe it was of Primetime Wrestling, where Bobby Heenan, with the WCW Championship, or the Real World's Championship, in his hand, introduced Ric Flair to everyone. That is a really iconic sight to see. Like, Flair, the biggest star of the NWA, in WWF, holding their title.
Yeah.
So,
my goodness.
It's safe to say, Jim Herd was later fired from WCW in 1992.
I don't know what would inspire that decision.
Just inexplicable is the word.
Genuinely, I can't find a single thing wrong with anything that he did.
No, not at all. He was eventually replaced, of course, by Cowboy Bill Watts. Now,
oh, joy of joys.
Oh, joy of joys. Before we get into that, I want to go on an off-tangent and talk about one of the best early rivalries for WCW, which was, of course, Ric Flair and Sting. A very unique kind of rivalry in that, of course, that Flair at the time was Booker, and he really wanted to push this guy who was getting over massively with the fans. Like, when you think of Surfer Sting, you think of the guy running through, like, the entranceway with the crowd going nuts, with the bleach blonde hair, the neon tights. It's just an iconic sight, and that really helped propel WCW to have its own kind of, unique look to it. Was that you had these two larger-than-life guys doing proper wrestling and having these amazing matches.
You know what's kind of crazy? How Surfer Sting, as soon as Surfer Sting is replaced by Scorpion Sting, Surfer Sting just goes away. forever. He's been in the game for so long. I'd assume it would have gotten a revival at least once, but no.
I mean,
No.
I guess you could say with his TNA run, especially in 2007 when he fought for the NWA Championship, he incorporated both in like an amalgam.
It was a weird decision though.
It was a really weird decision, but a really iconic look for Sting with the white face paint, the red with the red trim, and he had those black and red tights with no kind of like vest on. Sting at that time in Bound for Glory, that event especially, he was shredded as all heck for a guy in his early 50s.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
But no, I think it is one that stands the test of time, and I think it's one that really kind of is part of WCW's legacy. When you go through history, the one constant we always had was Ric Flair and Sting. Even during their rivalry, where you'd have Sting join the Four Horsemen, only to kind of been betrayed by Flair, the constant, flip-flopping of title wins between the two of them. I don't know, going back and watching it, I still so engaged by that rivalry.
Because that gave rise to, like, I can't remember the exact phrase, it was like getting the Sting treatment. Or like, where the baby face is an idiot and doesn't realise the obvious betrayal that's going to happen.
Which is kind of, again, because it's called Sting, it was paramount to his career. He was a bit of a dum-dum. He's a professional himbo. He was the one that supersedes Kota Ibushi.
Yeah. Professional himbo. My God.
When you think about it.
No, you're right. That's why
the thing is, though, right, is I know, like, with Sting, it exists purely within the confines of wrestling, but Kota Ibushi is supposedly actually just like that.
That's true.
It's no surprise, really, given what Kota Ibushi did during.
People used to have to help. You used to have to partner him with someone so he didn't get lost in airports.
Oh, we love you, Kota. We really do.
I love Kota Ibushi so much.
Alrighty, with all that being said, let's get back on track and even more bad stuff. Before he gets up, alright, let's talk about Eric Bischoff. Now, during his tenure, Bill Watts made some really weird decisions that took wrestling kind of back to a more old school feel, which really didn't make up the numbers and ratings, and subsequently handicapped a lot of wrestlers. So what Bill Watts decided to do is that he banned top rope moves and banned like jumping off of the ropes and doing some high flying offense. He also wanted to kind of strip down set designs and lighting to a much more old school feel, where it was just like one spotlight on the ring and a smoky arena. Again, didn't do really much for WCW at this time in terms of the ratings.
It just makes me laugh because they put all that effort into getting like a young Brian Pillman and the Steiner brothers.
Yep.
And that was like half of their stuff.
And you handicap them in the worst way possible. Again, sticking with the times, isn't it? So after a lot of clashes with upper management and some pretty serious accusations of anti-Semitism, Watts was fired in 1993 and was replaced by Eric Bischoff. Now, at the time, Eric wasn't... Bischoff. I like that. Dan. Thank you for that. Now, Bischoff wasn't an established name in wrestling. He had cut his teeth in the NWA as an announcer and colour commentator, and was originally brought into WCW as the second commentator to Jim Ross after the AWA had folded. Quickly, though, he was impressing the execs at WCW with his drive and ambition, and he had a lot of business savvy in the company. I mean, so much so, he was promoted to executive vice president of WCW. Now, this, fun fact, was the moment where Jim Ross decided to leave WCW to go to the WWF because in his eyes, he didn't want to work for someone who just a couple of weeks earlier was beneath him in terms of the company standing. So that's what made Ross or JR jump to WWF in '93 at WrestleMania 9 in a toga, and the rest is history. It's a weird one, that is, about...
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know that I'd expect that from JR.
I don't know.
I guess maybe in the sense of, like, he thought it was weird that someone who was on commentary all of a sudden got promoted to EVP.
That's the only thing I could imagine with that. Because it would be a very weird kind of thing to know. Oh. Gosh, now the guy who's making me, giving me the scripts and all that, the guy who's running the show is the guy who I was just commentating with a week ago.
Like, that does seem suspicious in a way.
So, Bischoff's first year wasn't as good as it could have been. Actually, it was quite unsuccessful. Only because Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson at this time were still at full creative control. And they were still doing very cartoonish storylines. I mean, with the combination of Rhodes and Anderson, these guys were the ones that came up with the White Castle of Fear, the Beach Blast mini-movies that they made, the spin the wheel, make a deal angle, involving Sting, and of course the most infamous one, which was the Lost in Cleveland storyline, which we lightly touched upon in our Mick Foley retrospective, where he was knocked on the head by Vader in that match when he powerbombed him in the concrete, and Cactus Jack suffered from amnesia and thought he was a sailboat captain.
Which I swear to God was a Simpsons episode. I swear
it was Krusty the Clown became a sea captain.
Oh, that's right. Although he wasn't amnesiac. He just wanted to run away. Yeah. What the? What?
I know. So here's the thing, right? According to Foley in his book Have a Nice Day, he wanted the storyline originally to be really serious and generate genuine sympathy for him before his in-ring return. But Ole Anderson and Rhodes wanted them to be more comedic instead. Foley goes on to quote that this segment was so bad that they were they were so bad that WCW deluded themselves into thinking they were going to be a surefire money-making feud.
Good Lord.
God.
So, with Bischoff in control, he would end up in '93 beginning the Disney tapings, which of course would see WCW begin tapings at the Disney MGM studios in Orlando, Florida. This would be able for them to tape their syndicated programming, like WCW Pro Wrestling and WCW Saturday Night. So this kind of confused a lot of things when they started doing this syndication, as that they would confuse wrestlers into where they were in the storyline. So one week they would have a title, the next week they would not have the title, but then the next week after that they would be miraculously back with the titles. This confused a lot of WCW storylines. It didn't matter, because at this time, when they were filming at Disney and MGM, when they would bring audience members in, they weren't paying customers. They were in fact tourists of Disney and the MGM studios that were kind of funneled in to watch this kind of little showcase of wrestling. And this is how bad it was, right? The tourists were being told when to cheer and when to boo and applaud the wrestlers.
Oh dear.
So it literally was like Disney World, basically, at this time.
It's so confusing, though, because, obviously pre-taping wrestling shows is something that's easily possible. But, the thing is, you can't let stuff get out.
Yeah. It's so...
And also, having people there who aren't, wrestling fans and you're having to tell them. I mean, obviously, for a wrestling company, that's like perfect to have an audience that you have to tell when to cheer and when to boo. But like, I feel like it would just make everything seem off.
So strange. A fun story about this time was a story in the tag team division where it had been revealed in a taping that Arn Anderson and Paul Roma were to be the WCW tag champions and were going to defeat the Hollywood Blondes, of course, stunning Steve Austin and flying Brian Pillman. Now, they decided to swerve the fans at the next pay-per-view and keep the titles on the Blondes, but the pay-per-view after that, Clash of the Champions, that was to take place in August before they had already shot the footage. Oh no, sorry, before the footage they had already shot of Anderson and Roma being the tag champions. That was supposed to be broadcast in August in the lead up to Clash of the Champions. They had filmed weeks worth of footage of Anderson and Roma as tag champions, but then at the pay-per-view just decided, no, you know what, we're going to keep it on the Hollywood Blondes.
Wow. Yep. The more things change.
And that's not even the worst part. The worst part was before Clash, before they could even get to that event, Pillman was injured and unable to wrestle. Hence, Steve Austin had to team up with Steven Regal.
Again, this is the problem with pre-taping, and then also deciding to swerve on a pre-tape.
I guess what? This was the moment that WCW decided to inexplicably split up the Hollywood Blondes, which were hugely popular as a heel tag team at the time.
Man, I wonder why.
It's stuff like this. I keep thinking that, like, the problems with WCW on a writing perspective was something that, like, came up after a certain point, right? But it's stories like this that go, no, it just always was like this from the ground level, from, like, foundational, which I think is kind of fascinating.
It's really weird. It's just
like you think that it's like this is what happened and these were the problems. No, this was kind of like WCW's like original sin.
The thing is, right, is that I think the thing that WCW had was there was always good, but there was always bad running in a cycle underneath.
Oh gosh, yeah. And it always seems like no matter how much good they would do, it was always the bad at the bottom that would always show through and be the one that was kind of on show all the time. If that makes sense, because if one bad thing and suddenly the whole product's just gone to the wolves. Anyway, I'm glad that I brought up Clash of the Champions because this Clash of the Champions, oh gosh, this Clash of the Champions, WCW was about to give birth to quite possibly its most infamous moment. So, 1993 saw the return of Ric Flair after his WWF tenure. He left on good terms, as a matter of fact, with the WWF, and he was told that he could come back at any time if he so choose. Great. So he decided to return to WCW, but unfortunately he was constrained by a no-compete clause. In response to this, WCW gave him his own talk show segment in the vein of Piper's Pit known as Flair for the Gold. You know, Dan knows where I'm going for this.
I know exactly where this is going.
So during Clash of the Champions 24, during a segment of Flair for the Gold, WCW decided to introduce a mystery partner for the babyface team of Sting and the British Bulldog. The masked man known as the Shockmaster.
What I love about this is it's such an innocuous moment, but it's actually, in a weird way, not pivotal, but it is a significant mark in WCW's history.
It really is. We've talked about a little bit about this in the past, like the ridiculousness of how it all kind of falls apart as soon as Shockmaster or Fred Hartman falls through the wall. The one thing that always makes me laugh that you brought up, Dan, was that Flair suddenly disappears and is replaced by a cuts out of Ric Flair.
Yeah. It's a thing. Like, I just remember watching it one time and I was like, man, Ric Flair's standing really still. That's weird. And I was like, that's definitely a cardboard cutout.
What I love, again, one of my favourite moments is that you can hear British Bulldog going, he fell on his ass. He fell flat on his ass.
It's that, and also the fact that Sid is trying his hardest to keep it alive.
He's trying so hard, bless him.
Of course, we all know that the Shockmaster was voiced by Ole Anderson.
It's so good. Everything about this is so good. Why did they think a guy with a bedazzled stormtrooper helmet and a fur vest? The dude looks like Shrek with a bedazzled stormtrooper helmet.
Okay. Can we talk about that stormtrooper helmet?
Yeah.
Where did they get that helmet? Because this isn't like modern day where you could buy any like stormtrooper helmet.
Again, that's another question to be answered. A, how did they get it? And B, why?
Yeah, like. Yeah. How do you get that? How do you bedazzle something like? I have so many questions and none of them have been answered.
I would imagine like half an hour before the Flair for the Gold segment, they had like the rigging crew who have all the paint as well as the set designers just spray painting the shit out of it and then just throwing PVA glue and glitter at the damn thing. Because if you can see. You see some of the paint and glitter after Ottman's fallen, kind of smudge on his chest and arms.
Yeah. I mean, there's the whole thing that apparently Dusty Rhodes said that there was just a 2x4 at the bottom of the wall, which made him fall over, and they did a successful rehearsal. But I'm just
why was there a 2x4 there in the first
that's why I'm like, why was there a 2x4 there?
Maybe for more sturdiness, but if there was a successful rehearsal, which is claimed that they had for that moment, why did you need to then reinforce it if it was successful in the first place?
Yeah, I don't. Oh my god.
Also, the tripping thing, I can't guarantee that that's 100% true, because it looks like Ottman really puts a lot of effort into it, because it looks like he just pushes himself, but he looks like he put too much momentum on it, and that's probably what caused him to fall. Because if you want like a destructible wall like that, logic would dictate maybe you should go through legs first, that way you don't trip up.
God, he knows.
I don't know. I mean, we're discussing about the finer details of the Shockmaster.
Yeah.
Because it's just so many things have to go wrong for that moment, and you just have to go through a play-by-play to really get it.
So this didn't work, and within that, they decided, all right, screw it, we've got Flair back, let's just base the promotion around him again, because we've got nothing else. I mean, this was you could say that is a necessity after what the couple of years Flair's been away, the awful booking decisions, and now they've got Bischoff there in creative, but they still have Rhodes and Anderson doing the creative. Yeah. Get Flair at the top as fast as humanly possible. But this actually was a necessity. Not because they needed the ratings, but also because of an incident involving the top babyface Sid and Arn Anderson. Of course, if no one has heard this incident, I'll quickly go over it. So, on a tour in England, 8 weeks before Starrcade, Sid Vicious and Arn Anderson got into it, and subsequently, Anderson stabbed Sid with a pair of scissors. Several times, may I add.
No.
I don't even know what to say to that.
So yeah, Anderson was subsequently fired from the company.
No shit.
They had to scramble quickly for this Starrcade, so he was placed in the main event against Vader for the championship, with his career on the line, and of course, Flair won at Starrcade and was once again made head booker of the company. That wasn't, of course, an on-screen stipulation, But no, this didn't suffer. This time, at the end of '93, they were losing money. Like, at a time, they lost $23 million at this time in '93.
Wow.
Which made, all right, at this time, with Flair being the booker and Bischoff still being the president, Bischoff now says, all right, no, we've got to be serious, and we're going to do this. The first thing I'm going to say, we're declaring war, I should say, sorry, on the WWF. And so this was the push that he made, the aggressive push he made to recruit former high-profile WWF wrestlers. 94, of course, saw the big acquisitions of Macho Man, Randy Savage, and Hulk Hogan. Now, of course, we all know the story of Hogan really didn't want to wrestle after he left in 93. He was off trying to pursue a film career. But because his filming was happening in MGM Disney, in those studios, Bischoff was able to wrangle his way to have a meeting with Hogan, try and convince him to get back into wrestling, to work on a lighter schedule. You get a little bit more money here and there. It might work out for you. The offer's on the table, Hogan. And of course, Hogan, seeing that, was it Thunder in Paradise, I believe he was filming at this time, was not going to be the rating success he was going to... It was going to be.
Yeah, I legitimately thought that you were going to go. And he left because he realised that his movies were bad.
Of course they were bad. But being able to have Turner's monetary resources, he was able to do that and place, buy more high-profile former stars or established stars with proven track records. But due to their high profiles, Hogan and Savage were able to demand concessions, such as multi-year, multi-million-dollar contracts and full creative control over their characters. Of course,
this can't go wrong in any way, shape, or form.
I was going to say,
it's like we never learned anything.
I wonder how that turned out. We'll see how that turns out in part 2 of WCW. Hogan, in particular, was able to gain a considerable influence and friendship with Bischoff at this time. I wonder how he was able to do that. No. This also, because of this friendship he was building with Bischoff, he was able to gain a hefty fee to appear at pay-per-views, as well as quite a sizable percentage of the gross revenue from the pay-per-views in future years. It's crazy, isn't it? It's actually crazy. But anyway, I'm getting off of track here with Hogan. We'll get more into Hogan's shenanigans in the next episode. But Hogan's, of course, first appearance was at Bash of the Beach. And, of course, finally, we'd get the dream match everyone wanted to see when Flair entered the WWF. We got Flair versus Hogan for the World Championship. Of course, Hogan was going over on this one in his first appearance at WCW.
It wasn't going to be anything else.
Yeah.
It was, but thing is though, that event drew a high buy rate by WCW standards.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because this was the first time with Hogan there that they were getting some mainstream eyes on their product.
Hogan versus Flair.
Yeah, that's a match.
Exactly. Also at this time, we would see Savage debut in WCW, teaming up with Hogan every so often, beefing up the main event scene. Of course, with all of this being said, with more established stars, more kind of their younger talent was seeing more pushed down the card. Most famously, of course, was one stunning Steve Austin, who was quite an adept hand in WCW. He was a former US champion, had a great rivalry with Ricky Steamboat. If you've not seen it, I highly recommend it. A fantastic little rivalry in the old days of WCW. Yes, stunning Steve Austin, subsequently fired via FedEx by Eric Bischoff. That decision didn't come to bite him back in the bum, did it?
Yeah, whatever did happen to that guy?
I don't know what happened to him.
He went to ECW, I think, and had like a little rivalry with Mikey Whipwreck, and then decided to have a couple of promos taking the mick out of Hogan and Bischoff. Don't know what happened to him. I do remember after he left.
I might have to follow up on that. I'll have a little investigation.
I heard that he may have become the ringmaster in WWF. I can't say so.
I'll have a look.
Sure,
I'm probably going to be
Yeah.
watching Saturday's main event or something.
Awesome.
And he'll pop up.
Yeah.
So this leads us to our ending, our little conclusion here in 1995. In mid-95, Ted Turner asks Eric Bischoff how WCW could conceivably compete with McMahon's WWF. Now, Eric, really not expecting anything for Turner to kind of go with it or for him to even comply with what Bischoff was about to say, he said that the only way he could compete with Vince was to put WCW on a primetime slot on a weekday night, maybe possibly up against Monday Night Raw. Ted Turner goes, "Yeah, sure, why not? I'll do that for you." So to which Eric Bischoff was like, "Excuse me, what?" So he granted him a live 1 hour show on TNT every Monday night. And thus, we get to WCW Monday Nitro.
Nitro.
Which I'm going to say at this time had the much more hyper intro music than Raw did at the time. I mean, I still think that opening segment of Nitro, with being in the darkened city with the flames going off and the kind of the projections of all the wrestlers with that awesome guitar riff, just mwah.
Oh, yeah.
So to end this one, we are going to talk about the very first Monday Nitro from the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota in September 95. WCW Nitro made its debut on TNT. It's a really interesting visual, having a wrestling show taking place in a shopping mall.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, if this was Bischoff's idea, it worked because it is an interesting visual and one heck of a way to start a brand new Monday live wrestling show.
I mean, you have to remember, though, at this point as well, the Mall of America was seen as important and not just an attraction.
Yes, absolutely. So, being commentated here by Eric Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, and Steve Mongo McMichael.
It's Mongo!
Oh, god damn it. You know what? Say what you will.
Mongo.
Say what you will. I love Mongo as well, and I wish him all the best.
McMichael is amazing. I do wish him all the best. And I'm happy that there are people keeping his legacy alive.
Absolutely. Hashtag and at Mongo and Friends for that. A terrific Twitter page. Okay, so I'm going to go down the card because there's only 3 matches in this card.
Oh, well, that's all right then.
So we had a non-title tag team match to open up, which was a dark match with the American males defeating the Stud Stable.
Okay.
So, of course, the American males were Marcus, Buff Bagwell, and Scotty Riggs, who had, of course, the greatest theme song of all time. American Males.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was just the one that said the name over and over and over again.
And the Stud Stable of Bunkhouse Buck and Dick Slater were, of course, managed by Colonel Robert Parker. Fun fact, the Stud Stable are still going to this day, with Robert Parker showing up at MLW and forming a very brand new incarnation of the stable.
What?
Yep. The Stud Stable has been going since the late 80s, Reed.
What?
Yep. It's crazy, isn't it?
I never knew this.
Madness. That's madness. I mean, good on you guys. Hope everything is
Clearly,
well.
I haven't been paying enough attention to MLW.
Of course,
Yeah, apparently.
Of course, as everyone knows, Colonel Robert Parker, very famous for pooping his pants in the middle of the ring. No, not in storyline. He literally pooped his pants in the middle of the ring during a War Games match.
Oof.
So enough of that out of the way. We get to, of course, our opening match, and considered quite possibly one of the best debut matches for a wrestling company. Flying Brian Pillman versus Jushin Thunder Liger.
I mean, of 2 people you could have to be on an opening match to get people's attention, Liger and Pillman are pretty much up there.
You know
Yeah.
what? It's a shame that the Forbidden Door wasn't open during AEW's debut, because who would have loved to have seen the poeticness of having AEW's debut match being Brian Pillman Jr. versus Jushin Liger?
I mean, that'd be pretty damn great.
They missed something there, like so much. I would have been like Tony Khan. I would have been like throwing all of the money at Liger to come over. But no, this match is great. Like, these two, damn, did these two work so well together. Like, Liger really can adapt to Bryan's style, the American style of high-flying wrestling, so well.
I just imagine that that Liger is like, so for any people here who play guitar, listen to metal, you know John Petrucci? And like, there's a video of John Petrucci just like watching someone else play something, and it's like he's like downloading it, and then he can just do it. I just assumed Liger's like that. He just sees someone wrestling, and just by visual, he's just like, okay, I know what to do.
Yeah. Liger is definitely just Taskmaster.
Yes,
Straight
he
up.
really is. No, a fantastic short little match. Great way to kick off this event. We get up to the next one, which really is funny in that this really kind of, for me, should have been the main event. But, of course, with Hogan being there as world champion, I can understand why he was in the main event. But I digress. The United States Heavyweight Championship is on the line as Sting goes up against Ric Flair. Another short match. No, it was a no contest. Not a bad match. Not the greatest match Sting and Flair have had. But, again, to open up Nitro, it's not a bad match at all to start to have. And of course we get to the main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. Hulk Hogan going up against the former Big Boss Man, Big Bubba Rogers. Yeah, did you think
Hogan, man?
I was going to say, do you think Hogan was very notorious for having his friends be at the top of the card coming? Because come on, let's not forget the main event of Starrcade '94 was him versus his best mate, the Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yep.
But
My
actually, I would
goodness.
say most people don't even remember this match. The one visual everyone solely remembers is Lex Luger returning after being in the WWF since 1993. The visual of Luger at the entranceway with his hands on his hips looking at Hogan is a visual I think that has stood the test of time.
Yeah, it has.
A great, I mean, what a great way to start. Like, I mean, that's the way you got to hook someone in for a brand new promotion or a brand new show is surprise the heck out of them. I mean, it's like AEW did with John Moxley in their first event. Great visual. Fun fact: Luger received a lowball offer from Eric Bischoff because Bischoff really didn't want him to return. And thus, we end part 1 on the history of WCW. We're going to get into the big stuff come part 2. We're going to be talking about the Monday Night Wars. We're going to be talking, of course, about that renegade group of outsiders, all the way eventually getting to David Arquette as world champion.
Let's go.
Gents, how do you feel as we're halfway through the story of WCW?
You know, like one thing I will say, very well done, Sam, for compressing a hell of a lot of information into in a pretty well bite size. But to be quite honest with you, I feel nothing but dread because I know what's coming.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, and I do.
I think the thing is that as much as like. I look, you know, because people love to do the whole thing where they're like, "Oh, well, it was all, you know, it was all Russo, it was all whoever." But like, it's just like you just get this idea that literally just from inception, like there was just a fundamental, always something wrong.
And I think that's the greatest shame of WCW, because we all know, every wrestling fan knows that company was freaking good. When it got it right, it did it tremendously well. But it's just everything that came with that. It kind of like the wheels constantly fell off of that cart. That was WCW.
It's just a foundation It's like it's fascinating listening to it. It's a foundational issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that like going through the history of it really kind of puts paid like no. It always had this problem. It just got much worse and impossible to ignore as time went on, which we will get to.
Indeed.
So, definitely with the next episode, I know I didn't lightly touch upon many wrestlers, but I feel with the next episode, I'm going to definitely spotlight a lot more wrestlers. So don't worry about it. I'm definitely going to be bringing up DDP, Booker T, Goldberg. I'm definitely going to give these guys the spotlight that they absolutely deserve, and as well as the Cruiserweight division as well, even though we already have a whole episode on the Cruiserweight division in WWE.
Yeah, but they still need love.
They still absolutely need love. So, yeah, don't worry. My apologies if you wanted a lot more kind of character profiles of people at the time, but those will be coming in the next episode, mostly because I feel more confident to be able to profile people around that time, because I was watching WCW at that time as opposed to the early days of World Championship Wrestling. So I thought I'd play it safe for this episode.
4 hours long.
Exactly.
I'm on a time schedule.
Exactly. Alrighty then, chaps. I'm excited for the next episode. I don't know about you.
Oh, I'm very excited. It's going to be really fascinating.
Alrighty then. So, until the next episode, I have been Sam. This has been Dan and Reardon, and you've been listening to the Sweet Chinwag podcast. We will see you as ever on the next one.
Hey, guys. Here's to many more years. Thank you so much for listening if you are.
Hogan!